Welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Fundamentals Masterclass. During this masterclass, we're covering the 8 fundamentals that you need to know to be successful as a real estate investor. And we've so far gone over mindset and deal flow. And today we're going to be talking about estimating repairs. Sad fact, every single day, investors walk away from good deals because they were just unaware or uneducated about the actual cost of repairs. Who's done that? I know I've done that. But there's also another sad fact. Every day, investors don't walk away from deals, even though they were unsure or uneducated about the actual cost of repairs. Who's done that? Like, raise your hand. I've done that too, unfortunately. And while it's better to miss a good deal than buy a bad deal, when you know and when you learn how to properly estimate repairs and analyze deals, you can make sure that you're always making offers with confidence and getting the right deal at the right price. That's ultimately that's what you want, right? To do that requires that you have a plan. When you're planning your remodeling project, there's really 3 primary questions that you need to ask. And it follows the must, should, can. What must you do? What should you do? And then what can you do? And the can, what can you do? This really refers to wow factors that you might want to add, maybe 1 or 2 wow factors that you might want to add. Not that you have to, but you can do that if it makes sense. And this really starts with must. You have to must. You're going through every single line item in the house and you're asking the question, what must you do? Or must you replace this? And you also have to consider, as you're asking these questions, you're going through your must, should, and can questions. You also have to consider the deal type and the market that you're in, because those matter. Is it a buyer's market versus a seller's market? Is it a flip or a rental? Or is it more of a short-term project? Or this is a very long-term project, high end, low end? You have to consider that when you're answering these questions. Take like flooring, for example. If you're walking through the house and you see the flooring is damaged, like it's damaged, there's no way you could repair it even if you wanted to. Like, you must replace that. When you're asking the question, must I replace the flooring? The answer is yes. Now, if it's very old and very ugly and you're trying to flip the home and it's in a premium market, must you replace it? The answer is also yes. Now, if it's a lower end home, as far as how the median price point is, and it's a hot seller's market, must you replace the flooring? Well, I don't know. At that point, maybe it goes from a must, maybe it goes down to the should. Like, you should replace that. It really depends. And this is where your comps are really going to help you answering when you're going through this process and answering these questions on every single line item in the house. Because if the flooring is dated, but it's in really good condition, then maybe you don't have to replace it. But if the comps say, all the other comps in the neighborhood, if they all have higher end or newer type, like vinyl plank or whatever, and you have old tile, then yeah, you might have to replace that. So you want to keep that in consideration. Now, if it's a rental and the flooring's old but in really good condition, is it a must or a should? I would probably say that that's more of a should. Yeah, you probably should replace it. It's old. It's old. Even if it's in good condition, but it's old. Go ahead and replace it. But it really depends. Now, if it's a higher end rental, then yeah, you must replace it. If it's a lower end rental, then maybe the answer is, yeah, you should, but it doesn't necessarily matter for this market. So now, again, your comps are really going to help you when you're answering these questions, because ultimately, what do the other homes have to offer? They're your competition. The other homes that have sold or leased in that neighborhood, what do they have? If every other rental home, they all have the newer style flooring, like rental home or home for sale, depends on whether you're renting or flipping. If they all have the newer style flooring then even though your flooring for your home, if it's in good condition, it's just older, well, I mean, maybe you should replace that. That might be a must. I mean, it at least is a should. You should replace it. Just know that if you don't, it will impact days on market and your sales price. And you're going to really ask these questions on everything like countertops, appliances, paint, fixtures, every other line item in the house. Most investors have a good understanding on what must be done because it kind of makes sense. Like we were talking about, like in the very beginning, like damaged flooring. Like, yeah, you must replace that. You cannot have that when you're trying to flip a house. I think what trips a lot of people up is should and can. And with should, it's usually investors trying to cut corners, saving money by not replacing something that they should replace because every other home in the neighborhood has the upgraded flooring, like vinyl plank flooring, and upgraded lighting. And even though your house has decent flooring, it's just dated, and they have outdated lighting fixtures. Like, you don't do that. You should, but you don't. Well, the problem is, it's not that it won't sell, because it probably will. It's just not going to sell as fast, and it's not going to sell for the same price. And that ultimately does impact your bottom line, depending on how you budget everything in. So that's usually where I see a lot of investors really make mistakes, is it's in that should, and it just comes down to cutting corners, trying to save costs. And it's usually because they didn't start off the process on the right foot when they're planning, and make sure they have the right budget in place. So they try to cut corners. The other kind of the opposite of the spectrum is the can, because that where I see investors making the mistake is they go in like a median, price home, and they try to do this HGTV type flip, very luxury flip, replacing everything, busting down walls and all this stuff, like they were going to live in it. So they make the whole project a wow factor, and really they maybe didn't even need to do anything. Like, yeah, you can do that, but I mean, should you? Probably not. But it depends, in a hot seller's market like we had over the past couple of years, or at least during COVID, 2021, 2022. I mean, did you need to go out and put wow factors into your home? Was that really going to have the impact that you would need to make that worthwhile? And the answer in most markets during that time frame was no. The market was hot. You didn't need to do that. Now, if it's a buyer's market, it's very slow, then maybe it might be able to help. And again, when you're asking these questions, your must, should, and can questions, you're comparing it with the comps, and you're really seeing how those decisions, how they impact days on market and ROI. DOM, days on market. So is it going to decrease your days on market? Like, if you do this, will it help your home sell faster? Because every single day that your home is on the market is costing you money. Or let's just say this: every day that you own the property, it costs you money. So, and this is prorated, your daily prorations for taxes, insurance, HOA, utilities, your mortgage. Every single day you have the property, that costs you money. So if you can sell it faster, especially if you can sell it much faster than what some of the other homes are selling for, like that answer is yes, then that is good for your ROI. But the other part of the ROI equation is, are you going to be able to sell it for more? Like, take, for example, countertops. So you're going to replace countertops anyway. Now, you can just go with builder grade countertops, but what about spending an extra $2,000 on a higher grade quality of granite? Like, would that help you sell the home faster? Or would it help you maybe sell it for an extra $4,000 more? So you're spending $2,000. Are you going to be able to get $4,000 back? Is that going to help you really increase your price? If the answer is yes to one or preferably both of those, it might make sense to do that. But it's also important to know that sometimes, and especially depending on the market cycle, less is more. Sometimes less is more, meaning that if you can get a high quality home on the market at a really good price, like at that median price point, maybe slightly below it, it might sell faster with overall more net profit. in your pocket than had you gone in and just replaced everything. And I've experienced this on both sides where I've done the replacing everything, ended up netting less than what I would have had I just, didn't quite go as crazy with my remodel and got in at a little bit lower of a price. But overall, I would have netted more had I done that, because sometimes less is more. Now, when estimating repairs, it's important to take your meds. You got to take your meds. And what that stands for is minimum effective dose. As a business owner, your objective is to provide a quality product to the market, in this case, a quality home on the market at a good price to maximize profit. Let there be no mistake. You are in business to maximize profit. You do want to get a good quality product on the market. You do want to do that. Provide your customers, home buyers or renters, with a good quality home. But your objective is to maximize profit in in that process. Forget about the HGTV flipping shows where they're going in and busting down walls and tearing out cabinets and redesigning floor plans and all that stuff. Like, there is a niche for that. There's a market for that. If that fits your business model and like what you're trying to do and within your market, it's not my experience, and it's definitely not really what we're kind of going over today. But just know, like, if that's your niche, like, that's okay. But I mean, in 200 flips, I've replaced all the windows in a home maybe once or twice. But I think it was only one time, and I regretted that. And then, like, if a window was broken, I just replaced the broken one. I didn't replace all the windows, even if they were dated. Same thing with cabinets. Like, if I could avoid replacing all the cabinets, I did. I would replace doors. I'd replace drawers. I'd put new pulls on them. But I wouldn't necessarily replace all the cabinets. Sometimes that made sense. But most of the time, I was able to just replace the doors, replace the drawers, put new pulls on them, paint them, and they looked brand new. And it was done far cheaper than actually replacing all the cabinets. With HVAC, if that could be repaired instead of replaced, I'm going to do that. Especially, and when I'm doing that, I'm also providing a warranty to the buyer. So just remember, when you're remodeling a house, you're not remodeling to live in yourself. You do need to know your market. Higher end remodels are, higher end on the market scale. That is a different type of model, different type of customer, renter or home buyer than the lower end of the market. So it's important to take that in consideration. But remember, you're not remodeling it to live in. You want to remodel it to fit the comps, match the comps. That's all you're doing. You're trying to target the comps. And there's two phases to estimating repairs. Now, phase one, this really helps you come up with your quick numbers. I don't know why. What's going on here? Here we go. Phase one. So phase one helps you come up with your numbers to really see if the deal is worth pursuing. Initially see if it's worth pursuing and get to where you can actually make an offer and get it under contract. This is you're coming up with quick numbers. It's going to get you a good range, and it's more to be thorough, but not necessarily highly accurate. The accurate phase, that's phase two. This is where you're going to start dialing in your numbers, and this is done during your due diligence period. So again, if I've said this before, let me know, and I'll probably say it again. Meet the comps. That's your entire objective when you're coming up with your estimated repair list and you're actually doing the remodeling. Do not exceed the comps. You don't need to do that. Anything you do that's going to exceed the comps is just a waste of money. Like, if you want to do it for your own home because that makes you happy and it's going to make your overall experience better living in a home, that's fine. But this is not your own home. This is an investment property. It's a rental property or house you're flipping. Meet the comps. It's all your objective is when you're doing a remodel. All right, phase one. This is your quick rehab analysis, and it's broken down into 4 categories. Your basic remodel is $10 to $15 a square foot. Usually includes painting, maybe some patchwork here and there on sheetrock, new flooring, and other miscellaneous items. Usually that's fixtures like plumbing and light fixtures, maybe some doorknobs, and it could be an appliance package. This is your basic remodel, and it's where I see a lot of people make, like most investors, this is where they underestimate the repairs. It's in the basic remodel, because when you're walking in, it doesn't look like much. Like, oh, they paint and carpet. Wholesalers will say, hey, it just needs paint and carpet. But even if that's true, it's pretty hard to spend these days. Less than $20,000 on a home that just needs paint and carpet, or I say paint and carpet, paint and flooring, really. It's kind of hard to spend less than 20 grand, unless it's just a really, really small home. It's hard to spend less than 20 grand on a basic remodel. So investors, will make the mistake thinking, I can get this done for like 13,000 or whatever. And then they go in and they get the bills in. It ends up exceeding that, and that's not fun. Now, going up the scale, you've got the moderate remodel. And in my opinion, this is the most dangerous remodel for newer investors, because what they end up doing, almost similar to the basic remodel, it's basically the problem with the basic remodel. It's just compounded a little bit, where investors will go in, they think they can get a $45,000 remodel done for 30 grand. And so the moderate remodel is $15, $20 a square foot, and it's going to include a little bit more heavy lifting on cosmetics. So you're putting in new countertops, a lot more of the lighting and fixtures, probably new tub surround, shower surround, stuff like that. Now, I love these type of remodels, but you just have to know that you have to get your estimates right, so you can make your offers that are going to include the right amount of budget. Otherwise, you end up just losing money, because let's just face it. If you go in trying to do a $45,000 remodel for 30 grand and then realize, hey, this thing's costing more, a couple different things happen. One, if you don't do it and you cut corners, then remember the shoulds? How I said, a lot of people, investors will try to cut corners. This is where they end up cutting corners. And if you end up doing that, cutting corners by not doing these things, then the home just sits on the market, and it'll eventually end up selling, just for it'll take a lot longer and for a much lower price. And in that situation, the investor loses money. Or the other situation is, dang, you realize it's going to cost a lot more, so you fork out the extra money out of your own pocket. And you didn't budget for it, so this is out of your own pocket. Now the home ends up selling, and maybe you lose money, or maybe you just break even and you kind of like skate by that one. Neither one of those situations are good. Now, going up, or down to the full remodel, this is $20, $30 a square foot. This is like my probably most fun type of remodel, because pretty much everything gets replaced here. It tends to be the most profitable type of remodel, especially, if you do it right. The most profitable. It's easy to estimate because everything pretty much gets replaced. And when you put it on the market, the good thing is it's basically a brand new house. So any other homes that are on the market, yours is going to look and feel a lot better compared to those other homes, because even if they're fairly remodeled or updated homes, they're still going to usually have a couple things that are a little bit more dated than yours. So when you put your home on the market and everything is new, it looks and feels like a brand new house, and ends up helping it sell faster and closer, maybe even at or above your target price, and certainly above where some of the other more dated homes or older homes would sell for. And then last, you have the full gut. This is $30, $40 a square foot. These are heavy lift jobs. Flood houses, maybe like light fire type houses. The transformation on the full remodel and the full guts, those are like my favorite, like seeing the before and after pictures. They're a lot of fun. They're fairly easy to estimate, because pretty much everything needs to be done, and they sell quicker. So I always love these type of projects. But it's important to remember, this does not include, these price ranges And they're just to get you a general area or general idea of what the rehab's going to cost, but it doesn't include the major components. So if you're thinking you're going to do a full remodel and you've got your target, but it does need a new roof, like that's going to be extra. New HVAC, roof, foundation, plumbing, electrical, siding, those kind of things, those major structural components or whatever, those will be extra. And they're not really hard to add into your budget either, because most of them are in the $3,000 to $7,000 range. Can be a little bit more or a little less, depends on your market and how big the home is, and is it a higher end home or is it more of a lower end home? So those matter, but the $7,000 range per item, it's a good range that you can use to get you where you need to be for phase one. And one other note too, with foundation repairs, because you always want to get engineers reports when you have any type of like structural work needed. So if you're having to, especially with firehouses, you got rafters and all that stuff, permits are required anyway. But with foundation repairs, having a structural engineer go by and if it shows that you need foundation work done near where water lines are, kitchens, bathrooms, utilities, or your washer and dryer lines, then especially if it's an older home, you go ahead and expect that you're going to need to do new plumbing too. Because what's going to happen is when they do the foundation work and they start lifting the home, it's going to snap the lines. Like, ask me how I know that. So anytime I would ever see foundation work was needed near where water lines are, I would just go ahead and assume that I'm going to need plumbing repairs as well. So budget that in. Now, this is all the phase one estimate. It's not perfect. It's not meant to be perfect, but it is meant to give you a pretty good range of where your rehab cost will be. And it's helpful to build this out on an itemized spreadsheet. You can find these online. Just a spreadsheet that breaks down every line item that the house that is available in the house, and you've got that broken down into prices both for labor and in materials. And this is going to help you come up with your budget. Now, if you don't really know what a repair should cost, or if you should actually do the repair or replace something, this is where you need to ask questions. Get out there and ask experienced flippers, experienced landlords, people who are experienced with remodeling homes, contractors, probably the contractor you're going to be using, realtors. And I mean, you don't really have an excuse, because even if you don't know any of those right now, you can Google it and get some pretty good feedback on this. Of course, you should be building out your network of professionals. So you should be doing that. But just keep in mind that if you are going to be asking these questions to professionals, they work in performance. So they're typically pretty happy to help you a little bit in the beginning, as long as you use them in the future. But you don't want to waste their time either. So do your homework first. And as you start using them, like, they're going to be very eager to help you out with future questions, and because they want to keep your business. Just, of course, do your homework first. Now, that was all phase one. Phase two, this is really where you dial in your numbers for accuracy. And if you're using a general contractor, they're really going to be able to be a huge help in this, because they're going to give you a comprehensive quote. Now, if you're subcontracting the job yourself, you're going to have to go out and get bids on everything. The painting and flooring, sheetrock, countertops, roof, HVAC, everything. So, and multiple bids too. But if you're using a general contractor, you can get a few different bids from general contractors, and they'll each be able to give you a comprehensive bid on what your project's going to cost. Now, I've typically worked with GCs. I mean, I personally don't like subbing. I've done it. It just doesn't really fit my personality and my skill set. So I've always liked working with GCs. And really the ones that I used, they handled pretty much all the cosmetic work. Sometimes they would help handle like a major component, but usually it was all the cosmetic work, and then I would sub out some of the major cosmetics like roofing or HVAC or electrical. Starting out, I recommend you do that too, especially if you have a full-time job, because it's it's a lot, especially if it's a large rehab project. It's a lot to stay on top of this. Even when you're doing this full time, it's a lot. It's not impossible, but just know that it is a lot. It's even more difficult if you have a full time job, though, because there's a huge block of time where you can't be there. And depending on the type of job you have, you may not be able to answer questions or take phone calls. So, depending on your unique situation and how flexible your time is throughout the day, it's probably going to be better for you to use a GC. But even if you use a GC, just know that you need to show up on the job site every day, or at the very least, no fewer than every other day. You got to be there, because even with GCs, they've got other projects going on too. And you want to make sure that your project is getting the attention that that it deserves and is being promised by the GC, and they're progressing as they need to be. All right, I want to emphasize again, you have to get written bids. And a written bid is not just a text or an email with a number. Like, you don't want to have a GC go in there, look through everything, take some notes, and then they just send you a text saying, "Yeah, I can do it for $37,500." Like, that's the worst kind of bid you can get. It needs to be an itemized list, a detailed itemized list of every single thing that they're going to be doing. You need to know exactly what's in that bid. You both need to know exactly what's in the bid, and that's really going to help you, or it's going to help prevent conflict later on, hey, that's included, and or they're saying, no, that wasn't included. You also want to know, like, is the bid labor only, or is it labor and materials? I always wanted labor and materials. Always wanted labor. I think at the very beginning, I did some labor only, but no, labor and materials. They know where to get the materials. They can probably get them at a better price than you. Go ahead and let them bid labor and materials. It's just, if they are doing labor only and you're okay with that, you need to know that up front, because the last thing you want to do is think it's labor and materials, and then it turns out to be labor only, and then now you realize you got a big problem. Now, some contractors will break labor and material costs down for you. So as they send you the itemized list, it's going to have all the material costs on one column, all the labor costs on another column. And really, in my experience, the better contractors have done that. Not everyone does it, so it's not required that you get that. Some really don't want to do that for whatever reason. But just make sure that you know that, or you both are under the understanding, and it's very clear that labor and materials are included in that price. And it's also vital to include a 10% contingency on whatever that number is. So this is just because, look, repair budgets, they always go over budget. I'm pretty sure out of 200 flips, I can count on one hand, or there's probably only one or two projects that actually was under budget. It typically doesn't happen. There's always something that comes up. You're always needing a little bit more of something than what was bid. And remember, the GC, their objective is to get you a really good price. So, they need to be as accurate as possible. They don't want to overbid you because they want the business. It's just repair budgets tend to be more than what's expected. Shouldn't be a lot if you're doing your job up front and you're being very thorough, but you do need a 10% contingency to account for that, because if something comes up and you didn't have that contingency in place, then that money's coming from somewhere, and really it's coming out of your pocket. So you don't want to put yourself in that situation, because can you even afford it? And if you can't, now you may have to cut some things to be able to pay for whatever was necessary. And that could put you in a bad situation of not having a good product, or at least not being able to sell it as fast or for the price that you were intending. So we know we got to get good contractors. That's kind of a no-brainer, but where do you find them, right? The top two sources that at least for me, my experience, the top two sources to find good contractor referrals, they're going to give you reputable contractors that will give you competitive bids, are from other flippers and landlords So other people who are in the trenches actually rehabbing houses, and then also hard money lenders. Especially if they're a local hard money lender. Most local hard money lenders, I mean, they're also investors. And even if they're not, that's all they work with. They work with investors. So those are the two top sources to get referrals on reputable contractors that can give you really good competitive bids. You can also check with wholesalers. They might know, just know that like they're not managing projects. They're just wholesalers. But they could probably, if they've got repeat clients, they could probably refer you to maybe a client that could give you a referral. And then realtors, like realtors may not, depending on the type of realtor and what their specialty is, that they'll usually have referrals. They may not have investor friendly referrals, which sometimes can be confused with cheap. And by investor friendly, I definitely do not mean cheap, and I'm gonna go into that in a second. But realtors can be a good resource for referrals. So one example of this is when my wife and I, when we flipped our very first house together, we got a bid to replace the HVAC system, and it came in around $17,000. Now, I didn't know what an HVAC system, like replacing that, would cost. So I really didn't have a baseline, but 17,000 did seem crazy to me. So I got another bid for 12,000, and I'm like, holy cow! Like I just saved a bunch of money. And I was about to go with them, thinking I just saved a bunch of money. Like let's go with this person. And then I got a referral, and the referral I got was a reputable referral. They had this guy. He came out and gave me a price for like, it was like $4,500. I'm like, just blown away, like $4,500. So because it was a referral and it's a significantly lower price, I went with it. But you've got to be cautious of the lowest bidder. Typically the lowest bidding contractor, they're the most expensive. It's just the way it is. It costs a lot more money to fix a bad contractor's work than it does to do it right the first time. I know this to be true because I made the mistake. When you're getting multiple bids, you're going to see some bids are really high. You see some bids are really low. And then you're going to see several bids kind of in that middle range. And that's where you want to be. It's that middle range. Now with that lower price HVAC quote I got, I did hire them for that particular job, and they did work out on that job. But on the next deal, things got pretty fishy because they were slow. They weren't finishing the work, and they were asking for more money. They wanted more draws or their final check, and they weren't done. I wasn't doing that. So I finally got them to come out and finish the job, and I never used them again. And I'm glad. So I really kind of escaped that pretty easily, because other investors who ended up using them, they did get burned. So just be careful with the lowest bidding contractor. And there have been times where I have gone with the lowest bidding, like whether it was a sub or full GC, like early on, where I ended up having to fire them and bring someone else in. The lowest bidding contractor typically is going to be more expensive than just hiring a good contractor to begin with. Now, once you get the bid, that's just the start of the interview process with the contractor. It's just the beginning. You've probably heard the saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Same thing here. Good contractors, they're going to manage the entire job. They're going to be professional in how they handle problems that come up, because when you're rehabbing houses, problems come up. Like, how are they handling that? Good contractors are going to handle that pretty well. They're going to be positive and have good communication, which that's a pretty high thing on my list, is good communication. They're going to be able to establish agreeable pricing and payments, like how payments are handled up front. You're going to come to an agreement up front. They're going to offer suggestions on the project. And this can be very, very helpful. Not just suggestions on, hey, yes, you should replace this or whatever, but also suggestions on, hey, if you don't want to replace this, they're going to let you know, I think we can actually just repair this instead and save you some money. Of course, you want to be able to establish trust. and they're going to be able to provide you a full scope of work, a full itemized list of work that's supposed to be done in the bid. They keep their timelines, first they establish them, then they keep them, and of course, rehab projects sometimes end up going longer than expected. That needs to be reasonable, and not just because they're being lazy or they're putting more attention on other people's jobs. They can pull permits. They can handle inspections with those permits, and then of course quality work. Now, the single best way to vet a contractor, even contractors that you get from referrals, is to visit their job sites. And a good contractor should not have a problem with you doing this. If they're a general contractor, they should not have a problem with you visiting their job sites. And I recommend that you visit a job site that's just getting started, one that's in the middle of the project, and one that's near completion. So you get an idea of all different phases of a project and how they're handling that project. Also recommend, when you're going to them, go to some in the mid-morning and go to some in mid-afternoon. So that way in the morning, like, are workers there? Or is it kind of like a ghost town? And then in the afternoon, same thing. Are they there? Are they actively working? Or did everyone leave early? Because really, however they handle those people's jobs, that's going to be how they handle your project. You also want to check out, is the job site clean? Is it well kept, or is it just full of trash, debris, and beer cans lying around? I remember there was one this one project I went, and it was another investor. I went to look at his project, and I gave him a call afterwards. I'm like, dude, this place it's a mess, and like, there's no way they're going to be done on time. It's just a mess, and like, you need to call the GC and figure out what's going on. So you want to kind of know this stuff up front, right? Before they get on your project. Are workers there? Are they on task? Are they just kind of standing around or sitting down or taking naps? What does the quality of work look like? Ask the workers. Also, you can ask some of the subs, like, hey, how long have you been with a contractor? How's it been? What's your experience? Just remember, how they do one thing is how they do all things. So how they're handling these projects that you visit is going to be exactly how they're going to handle your project. So if they're doing sloppy work, you want to know that before you hire them, because you don't want to hire them, right? But if they're doing really good work on these projects, then chances are they're going to treat your project with the same level and the same quality of workmanship. And you want to know that. Now, to sum everything up, in the beginning, it's better to be comprehensive than accurate. You want to be comprehensive. You want to make sure everything is there, but you don't necessarily have to be laser focused and laser accurate in the beginning. That's phase one. That helps you move to making an offer that you can really count on, and you can know with confidence that you're making a good offer that you can make sense. But afterwards, once you get under contract, once you get into the due diligence phase, that's when you're going to go and get more accurate pricing. You're really going to fine tune your numbers and get that nailed down, because you're going to get bids. You're going to get bids from multiple GCs, or if you're subbing out the project yourself, from multiple subcontractors, and that's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of work. So that's why you have your phase one and phase two, like breaking it out that way. You want your phase one to give you a good idea and a pretty good range where you can make an offer with confidence. And then your phase two, that's for the bidding process while you have it under contract. As with most things in life, practice does make perfect. You will get better. I highly recommend, like, if you're new in this, I highly recommend just start estimating on repairs. Do one deal a day and just get the reps in. And if you know other house flippers or other landlords that are buying houses and doing remodeling projects, one thing you can do is ask them, hey, when you go walk your next property, can I walk it with you? And that way you can come up with your own, start practicing estimating repairs on your own, and then compare notes with what their estimate was. And then at the very end, ask them how it went and what their final budget ended up being. How much did they actually spend on repairs? Get your reps in, keep practicing, practice when the stakes are low. So that way, when it's game time, you're ready, you know what you're doing, and you'll be able to make a solid offer. And then you'll be able to really find kind of laser in on, once you get under contract, your repair budget to make sure that it's a budget that is going to make sense for the project because you planned on it, and ultimately it's going to help you make money. Now, estimating repairs, this is just half the equation to making an offer. The other half is evaluating the deal. That's what we're going to be going over next time. So be sure to tune in. You don't want to miss it, and I look forward to seeing you then.